Hello, my friends. It's Natalie Adele dropping in. Here's my new casita in the jungle. I've got the sunshine right behind me, so you can't, maybe you can see, but this is my casita. It's open air. Loving it. Anyway, this video isn't about my casita. It is about, it's about a daily practice. And that for you may look like yoga. It may look like dancing. It may look like a daily singing practice. It may look like so many things, meditation. And I'm just realizing so deeply in the last few weeks, sort of reflecting back on my personal journey with a practice. And it wasn't until the pandemic started that I had a daily practice. So, I forget about that part of my journey because I've been so deeply ingrained in a daily practice that I forget a year and a half, almost 2 years later, that there was a point in time for the majority of my life that I didn't have a daily practice. And a part of that included me being a yoga teacher and owning a yoga studio, and I didn't have a daily practice, and that's okay. That's okay. That's just where I was at in my journey at that time. Excuse me. And so as I've transitioned into this community at Pachamama, I just had a really profound realization. So I'm reporting to you live from my casita. My bed is right here. That's what I have the phone on. And the little patio is here. And in between that space fits a little space for a yoga mat. And at the top of that space, I have my altar. Now, my altar is something I've learned over the last year and a half of being nomadic and traveling. My altar is my anchor. My altar allows me to feel at home very quickly in a space. Now, what's interesting is, for those of you who don't know, prior to moving to this ego village 2 weeks ago, I've been a nomad for about 18 months. I've been living out of 2 suitcases, cars, Airbnbs, planes, trains, and automobiles. And I've really learned what's valuable to me, what items I bring with me to pack my practice on the road. And so, the story I've been sort of telling myself is, I don't know if I'll ever go to a yoga studio again. And I love the sovereignty of a home yoga practice. And even that over the last year and a half has changed so much. So, 18 months ago, my meditation mat and cushion was like my grieving altar. It's where I cried every morning as the sun came down and grieved over the loss of so much. And then it became a space where I explored new styles of yoga for the first time in a long time. Prior to the pandemic, I practiced 3 or 4 times a week at my studio, and that was my altar. That was my space. But once I explored a home practice, I expanded my teachers and my lineages and started studying Katona yoga. And that was a new aspect of my practice. And then it became a space for my own teacher training. And I became the student once again. And I completed a Kundalini yoga teacher training. And then it became a space to explore tea ceremony. I became a tea ceremonialist last year and sat with tea every single day for about 8 months, pretty much until just recently after moving to the jungle and hot weather. I was drinking tea every day. And then a few months ago, my morning practice became less of like, let me do a guided yoga flow to self-guided. I started drinking herbal tea, listening to guided meditations that I recorded. I started just intuitively flowing. I started utilizing more Taoist traditions and energy work and breath work. And so my practice changed so much over the last year and a half, yet it was still daily and it was still at home. And I also want to note that sometimes my practice was with intention, sitting in bed at 8 a.m. eating a warm, gluten-free cookie and drinking a cacao if I was on my moon flow. And sometimes that was my practice. So that's what I mean when I say your practice may look entirely different, but it's done with intention. And for me, it's done with the intention of bringing me into my body, the shell of my body, especially first thing in the morning before I go forward facing into the community and into the world. And so what I want to share with you is that since being in this community, I set up my altar space, I set up my yoga mat, and for the first week, I was waking up early at 5:30 and doing my self-practice here, doing my self-practice, all those things that I was describing earlier. And then about a week into it, I realized this is not the time or the space in my life right now to do that, to have a hour and a half, 2-hour solo home casita yoga practice or practice. And so now what I've been doing is waking up early, still waking up early, 5:30, taking a shower in solitude, doing a little bit here, so saging, putting my oils on, reading a passage from a sacred text, drinking a nice thing of water, and then packing my bag up and walking to the yoga shala to take a 6:30 either yoga class or Tai Chi class amongst community. And so it's changed. The story I was telling myself was, I'm good, like I'm sovereign in my practices and I don't think I'm going to go to studios again. And maybe in reflection, a part of that was a protective element, you know, grieving so much of releasing my own studio and fearing and sort of finding resistance to entering somebody else's studio. So I think that, you know, there was a part of that element. But now I'm living in community, you know, and I have the ability and the opportunity to walk to a yoga shala every morning and take and receive a class from beautiful teachers in a beautiful community. And my initial fear was, but I like to contain my energy to myself in the morning. And what I'm really learning about living in community is that I can do both. I can be out and within all at the same time. So by doing a little mini practice here in my space, greeting the sun as it rises and the howler monkeys are going off in the background, burning some sage, setting an intention for the day, keeping my energy contained, my auric field strong, and stepping into a shala with 50 people and still remaining sovereign in my practice and still remaining wholesome in my energy. And it's been beautiful, and it's been so nice to move and practice and be guided in a whole new way and discovering more about myself in that process. And what I just realized over and over again and am embodying over and over again is how this journey unfolds and how it is lifelong. When I first started my yoga practice, it was Ashtanga. It was, I want to master handstand, you know, in the middle of those powerful yoga flows. And then it became, you know, I was a teacher, and so much of my years of my yoga flow were dedicated to funneling that knowledge, embodied knowledge, out to my students and my community. And see, now it's changing. It's always changing. And right, and one just keeps on layering on top of the other. They're never forgotten. They're never lost. And so my intention with this video is to remind you that your practice may look different throughout the seasons of your life, throughout the seasons of your cycle, and depending on what's going on in the world around us, right? Yet the intention can remain the same. Why do I practice every day? So that I can feel alive, right? So that with all the movement around me, I can find my anchor, my body. And I'm realizing in my practice that home just keeps on getting closer and closer to me. So hopefully there's some nuggets for you available in this video. If you'd like to drop a comment about what your journey with your practice has looked like or where you are in this moment, I'd love to hear. So sending you love from my mat, from my altar, from my meditation cushion, and from the jungle of Costa Rica. Love you all. Ciao.